welcome to the very first episode of Root Talks, where ideas take flight. I am Vasha Charan of grade 11, and I am honored to spearhead this initiative. The idea being to indulge in conversations that inspire. And we're thrilled to kick this off in alignment with our Literary Fest. At RU, we are celebrating our Literary Fest featuring authors from all around India. It's a week dedicated to the love of stories, ideas, and creativity, bringing together renowned writers and enthusiastic readers. Our first episode features Dr. Manjula Shroff. The CEO of Calrex, Dr. Manjula Shroff, edupreneur, blogger, speaker, podcaster, leaving no field unturned. Once again, we welcome you.
Thank
so
you.
To start off, what was your experience on our campus and at this Literary Fest?
I love being here. I love the infrastructure. I love the fact that you're having a podcast. I love the fact that it's part of a Lit Fest. I was interacting with students earlier, and I like the way they think. I like that it's a very interactive, open kind of an environment. Coming to literature, it's said that literature is more important than history because history just records events, whereas literature grows individuals. Literature broadens horizons. Literature builds character. Literature records social customs and thoughts and beliefs. So there are so many more dimensions to literature than is to history. Sometimes we forget about that. So it's important that children, students get the richness of literature through LitFest like this. So congratulations.
That is great. Thank you so much. As you said, literature is more important than history. What part of literature are you most inspired by?
When I was growing up, I read a lot of books. Thankfully, we didn't have the digital intervention then, so it was a lot more into book reading. But over the period of time, I've spent a lot of time being an educationist, close to 3 decades. So I look at my genre is an extension of human development because, see, education is primarily developing a human being, much less about delivery of subjects. Of course, passing on knowledge dissemination is all important part of the delivery or the classroom transaction. But I think the underpinning message is shaping a human being. A child comes to us like soft clay, and we sort of, put in all the right ingredients and the color and everything that goes in to build a strong, emotional, resilient human being. And it is in that area that I found the maximum gratification that I have about doing human development.
It's great. It's about helping people and learning through experience is what I believe. So you've authored 2 best-selling books and truly remain to be an inspiration to all of us. So what was your inspiration to start authoring books?
I still haven't gotten used to being called an author. I really am an educationist at heart. During COVID, like everybody else, I found myself having a lot more time than necessary. And I guess that's where it kind of spun off because a friend of mine sort of wanted to write a biography on me, a recount of my life, if I may. And my first thought was, oh, come on. I mean, I thought biographies are about people who are, about to retire and have one leg in the grave and are, ready to renounce everything. And I was like, hey, I have miles to go still. And she's like, she is a journalist. And she says, every time that I talk to you, I find the way you present things, the way you think through things is very different. And it would be really good to kind of pen it down into like a document. And we got cracking on that. And so she wrote my biography. And the process was very intriguing. She would send me a bunch of questions online. I would respond to her. It was lockdown days. And when I went around and saw the response to the book, I was like, this is a great medium. And I'm glad that bookstores sort of had almost shut down, in the last decade. I'm sure that they're making a comeback now. Bookstores are breaking even, as in commercially breaking even. It only shows to say that society has begun to read again, which is very, very healthy.
You've got a lot to say and it needs to be put down in words.
Yes.
That's inspiring. The first book, it talks about parenting. So I would have to ask you, what is your perspective on different parenting styles, say authoritarian, authoritative, and permissive?
How about participatory? I'll come to all of those points. So My first book is on parenting. See, all of this time as an educationist, we've always partnered with parents, and we've seen that every time that students have issues, you know, typically when students have issues, we as educationists want to see what's going on at home. And especially the counseling department will first deal with the parents and then the student, right? Because it's the home environment that's going to determine the child. And post COVID, with the digital influence in the lives of children, with kids growing up as much online as offline, it became very essential to write a book on parenting because the current generation of parents are what we call migrant to technology, whereas kids are very native. And there's a huge gap in understanding the digital divide, sort of. And also, parenting norms have changed. Parenting used to be this protective feeling about, how can I keep my child protected? It's no longer going to be that. Because the child has to go out in the world, and in a world increasingly that's going to be infested with artificial intelligence, it's going to be a world where every child has got to learn to fail. And so the book deals with a lot of failure, the book deals with a lot of fear and contemporary ways, because I've seen that parent child communication breakdowns are huge in society. And so the book pretty much focuses on how can we speak to children so they hear us.
I think it's this generation is very focused on being independent and independent learning. So I think develop a platform or a way of communicating across the gap is extremely impressive. Would you say that authoring these books changed you as a person?
Absolutely. It was while I was writing this parenting book, and I'm going to address these descriptors that you gave about authoritarian parents. The Indian style of parenting is rather dictatorial. It's rather, I told you so, I know so, all of that. But especially as children grow older, it's important to have this partnership with parents, and which is where I believe the participatory parenting is more important. If you're authoritarian, if you're standing on one side of the curve. If you're permissive, you're on the other. You've got to be optimal. You've got to be balanced about it. And that's where the participatory comes, because you are a parent, you are the guide, you are the well-meaning adult. So there are times you're going to have to say as a parent that, hey, this is where I'm going to draw the line. But it has to be like a contract. It has to be like a discussion. It can't be unilateral. So it's neither permissive parenting nor authoritarian. It is in between. It is participatory. So did it change me as a person? I guess I started to look at, I'm a leader. I'm a corporate business leader, woman leader. So yes, I started to look at situations more deeply rather than maybe be an authoritarian leader or a permissive leader. I look at participatory style. So absolutely, writing a book is a very therapeutic exercise. It's like every author leaves a little bit of themselves in the books. So for sure, it changed me.
That's great to hear. So you're talking about women leaders. Do you see a lot of women as leaders in this day and age? And what is your take on feminism and gender roles?
Leadership roles in India, leadership roles worldwide is very, very dismal. It's very poor. It's in single digits. See, if you look at it in evolution, men have been survivors, hunters for the longest time. I'm talking Darwin's theory, right? So they have an edge in survival, and they have an edge in earning money, and they've been the traditional bread earners. So leadership roles for women is still very, very small worldwide. Having said that, a woman leader brings a lot of empathy to the table. A woman leader brings a lot of color. A woman leader brings a lot of joy into workplaces and diversity. See, it is by women working that we started to look at early time. We started to look at safety. We started to look at maternity. We started to look at, because I'm in the field of education, when there are examinations, we have teachers taking sabbaticals. So it's important to deal with every section of society, right? So I think on the feminism question, I've never felt the need to be feministic because I don't like either extremes. Being feministic is one edge of the spectrum, which is not balanced. To me, it's always about optimization and balance. I believe men and women are complementary to each other. I believe that one gender feeds off the other. It's like the yin and the yang. It's neither good nor bad. I think both strike a similar balance to society. I think both are essential needs of society. Having said that, men are physically far more strong. We've got to grant it. And women are emotionally far more strong. So I think it's a huge complementary status in society.
Everyone has their positives and negatives. You leave no field unturned, right? Speaker, blogger, author. How do you continue to enjoy all the small things throughout this journey?
So every time I've been a podcaster or a vlogger or an author, it's really just an extension of my profession. And I've taken education to the last mile, which is actually human development. To me, education has to be the vehicle of transformation in society. So I do all of that stuff out of the passion of my heart. And but yeah, beyond that, I'm a very outdoor person. I have a lot of hobbies, and I live a fulfilling 360-degree dimension life.
That's great to hear. We have to ask you this before we end. Shroffism, a
Yes.
platform to promote conscious living. So, what do you think we as students can practice to achieve a more balanced lifestyle?
It has to start with students because the children are the purest form. And then as you grow up and you get contaminated by society and the needs of society, we lose that purity that children have. And it's very important for us to retain that. So Shroffism as a platform essentially talks about the more mind, body, heart, soul connection. It talks about the mental, physical, spiritual dimensions that are so critical to human beings. And most people in the daily rut race of life are either making money or, chasing career goals, sometimes forgetting about health, which can have huge consequences. And definitely dimensions of spirituality are so low in society, which actually leads to all the dangers in society. So unless every human being is balanced through mental, physical, and spiritual dimensions, I don't think we have a healthy society. So that's Shroffism.
That's great. So, you said you're an outdoor person, so I have to ask you what sport would you say you want to play?
So I grew up playing a lot of basketball, but since I'm a cyclist, I've done cyclothons, I've run marathons. I've of course done skiing and skydiving and snorkeling and all of that. I am an active yoga person. I'm a gym, everybody has to go to the gym if you have to maintain good health. So yeah, there's a lot that I've done, but today, I think if you really want to be this balanced person that I repeatedly talk about, it is yoga.
It was amazing to have a conversation with you, and we really hope that you check out Dr. Manjula's books. They truly seem amazing, and I will definitely read them. So again, we thank you for being here today.
Such a pleasure being here. Good luck, everybody. Find your careers, find your goals, be balanced, be good human beings. That's more important than anything else. Godspeed.
Thank you.